Luvjunkeys, welcome back. Welcome back to my channel where we discuss all things love here, and God is love. I just wanted to bring some clarity on some of the things that I have already presented about how love operates, because the ways of love are not necessarily the ways of this world. And the way love operates may seem really foolish to the world. It may seem dumb. Like forgiveness, right? I say a lot about forgiveness. I post a lot about forgiveness. And the concept of forgiveness really for a lot of people seems really, really stupid. Like, why would you forgive somebody who raped you? Or who murdered your family, or who, we think of people who could do the worst possible thing. And they're like, why would you forgive that? My goodness, the worst possible thing. Some people haven't spoken to or forgiven their parents in years for not being for them what they wanted them to be, for not supporting them going to school, or for giving their sibling more than they gave to them. I mean, people have not forgiven and not even spoken to their very parents for less than things like murder and rape. Forgiveness really makes no sense in this world, and especially today. I was on my more private Instagram page, and I was scrolling through, and I saw this girl one day who had made a post, and she's just cracking up hysterically, and she's laughing and so hard that tears are coming out her eyes, and you're just like anticipating, looking like, what is the joke? What is the joke? And then she says, my rapist died today. And I just, and she just again starts into this real thick belly, guttural, ha kind of laugh. And I'm listening, to what she's saying, and I just, what started out as, hey, I want in on the joke, just really turned into deep sadness for me, because as I listened to her, I listened to how, how happy she was that this man had finally died, and as though his death somehow was going to bring her some kind of freedom. And just kind of reveling. I mean, she was just reveling in the fact that this man had passed away. And then I looked down at the comments, and so many people agreed with her. They were like, oh, yes, death to that jerk, and some, of course, that's the sweet version. You know how we do. That a-hole, right? Kill him dead. I mean, it just felt like one of those, 1826 hanging somebody on the guillotine and everybody in the town watching kind of moments, where everybody's reveling in what is going on. And I was just sick to my stomach. And I felt so bad for her. Everybody's like cheering her on. They're clapping. Yeah, kill that son of a, And I just made a comment, just a real quick comment about it, because it just really made me sad. So I was like, look, I really feel for this woman, because as long as she feels that way about that man, he will always have a place in her life. He'll always have a place in her heart, as long as she feels that way. And I just put hashtag forgiveness brings freedom, because it does. Okay. Now look, I made that one little comment, right? And now mind you, on this post, before I even commented, I looked to see how many comments there were. And there were 15,000 comments before I ever made mine, okay? So I made mine, I go on, several days pass. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I am getting texts or getting DMs or whatever they call it when they let you know that somebody's commented to your comment. Oh, the hate is real in this world, people. It's real. I never got so much hate comments in my entire life. You need to be raped. I see you know nothing about psychology. Whatever. You know nothing about psychology. You should be raped. You know nothing about this, and forgiveness doesn't bring freedom and all of this kind of stuff. I mean, just the comments just kept coming. And the hate was it was just insidious. And I'm like, these people don't even know me. I mean, luckily I just don't take stuff like that personally, because ain't nobody, you don't know me. What they were mad at, what they were angry with, was the situations and the circumstances in their own life that they never chose to forgive, and that is still marinating on the inside of them. Don't you tell her she needs to forgive, because what they're really saying is, don't you tell me that I need to forgive, right? Because they found it so hard, because they themselves have been holding on to anger and resentment for years, until it manifests to the extent that they will put their hand to the keyboard and tell me that I ought to be raped. What kind of person do you have to be to say that to somebody? To literally really wish that on somebody inside of your own heart? You have got to be hanging on to some real anger and resentment. And it's like you trying to say forgiveness doesn't bring freedom, but how is holding on to anger and resentment working out for you? Obviously not too well. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so that's just one of the ways of love. Okay, love has many, many ways. So I've also talked on here, especially last time, about being able to continue to extend love to people who've hurt us. And see, here's the other part that doesn't make sense to our culture, because right now, this world is not talking about let's forgive. This world is talking about let's cancel and string up anybody that we can. What'd you say? That's racist. String them up, you know what I mean? Get them up, cancel, right? Like, we are ready to crucify people these days. And today's atmosphere and today's pulse, the heart of our nation right now is very, very, very volatile. Everybody, all the anger and forgiveness, everybody is just like on 10, right along with all the fears and just the insecurities and everything throughout all these changes, all the being exposed, everything being so exposed. Everybody's just like, And so right now, the pulse is not, let me draw people onto myself to love them and to care for them. You know what I mean? Or let me continue to reach out in love to somebody who has hurt me. Right now, everybody's in that cancel mindset. But here's the thing, we're also using language indiscriminately. So we'll call people who struggle with certain mindsets and tend to make mistakes in how they treat us, we'll call them abusive. But not everybody who makes a mistake in how they treat you is abusive, right? Not every abusive person is a narcissist, or struggles with, narcissistic personality disorder. Those are very real things. And not everybody who hurts you is toxic. See, but these words, toxic and abusive and all of it, you got to really know what you are talking about when you say those things, number one. And just because your feelings are hurt doesn't mean that the person you're dealing with are those things. However, because the ways of love is not the way of this world, it looks pretty stupid, but it also looks pretty weak, right? Who would forgive somebody who hurt them like that, right? Because when we're hurt, we're vulnerable. When we're vulnerable, we feel powerless, right? And that powerless sense and that powerlessness and that sense of not having control, right, is what we always want to gain back. So it seems really foolish to this, or why would you give up your power? Or why would you go back in, right? And expose your vulnerabilities again to somebody who just hurt you. That don't make no kind of sense. Here's the thing. There are really toxic people. There are people who struggle with narcissistic personality disorder. I've had several in my life. I still have several to this day that I am dealing with as I speak. And that is a whole subject unto itself. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you want me to address. I mean, as the world turns, we are definitely seeing a rise in this narcissism in our nation and the people that we're dealing with. Anyway, it's a whole ordeal. So if you want me to talk more about it and even just maybe share some of my experiences, I don't know how much I can share. Like I said, my relationships are still kind of hot because I got some of them still active in my life, but I've learned how to deal with them. Thank you, Jesus. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about that more. But there are really narcissistic people, out there, narcissistically abusive people. There are just plain old abusive, selfish people. There are people who make mistakes in how they treat others because they didn't learn any better. They don't know any different. And then there's just people who just make mistakes because they just make mistakes because, one minute we're doing the right thing and the next minute we're not. So we are going to make mistakes. And all of these things culminate into the pain of somebody else at some point or another in our lives. So we all have the capacity to be hurtful to someone, is what that all boils down to. But here's the thing. All of what I have shared so far about forgiveness and about letting, reaching out into love, don't mistake kindness for weakness is pretty much what I'm getting to here, right? When we talk about love and the ways of love, and we talk about God, and we talk about, bubbles and hearts and love, and no. God is love. And in the Bible, the word of love, he is known both as not just the lamb, but also the lion. So don't get it twisted. It is not love for you to allow, number one, yourself to be treated abusively by somebody else. It's not love to you, nor is it love to that person. You are not loving them by enabling bad decisions and poor behavior in somebody else, nor are you loving yourself by accepting it. So that is not what I'm talking about here. So anytime I'm talking about these things, that is not what I'm talking about. When it comes to people who are abusive, yes, you can still love them. And I will definitely get that in, talk about that more in another video. Yes, you can. However, the most important thing to that is setting boundaries. Two things, actually. The first one I've got to say, number one, is taking a look at yourself, frankly. Because people only treat us according to what we allow. We teach people how to treat us, right? Because if I'm somebody who respects and loves myself, then I will not accept less than that same respect and love from somebody else. But if I don't respect and love myself, then I will accept treatment that is less than loving and respectful from other people. So you've got to look at yourself when it comes to you allowing somebody to repeatedly treat you in a poor manner. You've got to look at why you're dealing with it, why you are accepting that kind of behavior. And there's lots of reasons for that. I'll get, maybe more into detail, like I said, in another video. There's a lot. Because it's a huge subject to unpack. I just wanted to bring a little clarity to the table because people will see the ways of love in this world as weakness because of the vulnerability aspect. And why would you do something somebody who is repeatedly doing a behavior is somebody who is abusive. Right? Mistake is a mistake. It happens once, you correct it, we move on a different way. But somebody who repeatedly does a thing is in an abusive pattern of thinking and behavior that negatively affects the people around them. And you've got to be able to recognize the difference between somebody who's making a mistake, somebody who has got, some issues going on in their life that put them in a pattern of mistakes, somebody who is totally and utterly abusive, and somebody who is narcissistic, dealing with narcissistic personality disorder, which is kind of the highest form of abuse you can deal with, both physically and emotionally. So at least in my mind, in the categories that I have dealt with. Anyway, Right now, people, like I said, people who are utterly abusive, you have to do two things. Number one, you got to look at yourself. Why am I accepting this? And number two, you have to set boundaries. Sometimes that boundary is just a simple no. I am not going to accept this behavior from you. And sometimes that boundary looks like distance, right? Distancing yourself from that person, not ghosting necessarily. Sometimes you got to, though. There are people that you have to go completely no contact with them. I believe narcissists are like that. You have to go no contact with, to the extent that you can. Sometimes you're in relationship with narcissists that the nature of your relationship doesn't allow you to do it, but you have to kind of go no contact with that person, and the best you can do for them, or the best that you can do in terms of loving them, is just prayer. And of course, staying respectful and kind in your interactions with them, should you ever have to interact with them again. And so there's that. So there's setting boundaries. There's the simple just telling no. There's the distance boundary. There's the absolutely no contact boundaries. I mean, there's lots of ways to set boundaries too, and that's another subject we can dive much deeper into. But I just really wanted to be clear that this whole thing about this mistaking kindness for weakness, this whole mistaking forgiveness for allowing yourself to be a doormat for somebody who is just abusive and never going to treat you right or see you in the right way, or be able to be in your life what it is that you expect. That's not what I'm talking about. That doesn't mean we withhold forgiveness from these people. It doesn't mean that we withhold love necessarily from these people. It's just that it looks different. And so hopefully that brought some clarity to the situation. The goodness and the kindness of love should definitely not be mistaken for weakness, because frankly, I think there is no greater strength that you could stand in other than love itself. And I'll definitely get into that more as well. So hopefully you found that helpful, and join me next time. Comment down below what you think about it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and join the Love Junkie family. We would love to have you join the conversation about love. And here on this channel, we remember always that God is love. Bye.